I am excited to have Stefanie and Josh Gardner here. They're going to be working with three students, as I said before. The first is Brian Almanza. And Brian, tell us about yourself and what you're going to be playing for us today.
So I am a student at GCC Community College. I'm currently going through. They have like a partner program with a Christian university called Ottawa University that's actually based in Kansas, but they have a campus out here in Arizona, in Surprise, Arizona. And so I'm able to get my bachelor's while still being able to stay here with the great faculty that we have at GCC. And I've been here for the last 3 years. This is my fourth year, so I'm pretty close to the end of my bachelor's. For today, I'm going to be playing The Jungle by Eric Mandat, and I'm going to be playing the first movement.
Great job, Brian.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Who wants to go first?
How about you? Brian hears from me often, so how about you start?
Okay, so I've got a few little things. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. A whole bunch of stuff was not working earlier. So when we get to the tempo 1 on page 7,
Yes.
that's the written page 7. I know you got to deal with the page turn situation, but once we get out of the page turn, it's like the third line down from the tempo 1.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to maintain the energy all the way to the end, because you're setting up this drastic change into the second movement where it becomes incredibly static and still. So if it's a little too slow after your page turn, the if it's a little too, if it starts off too slow, it feels like you just lose that energy that you've set up prior to it. Could you try that? Starting on the third to last line of page 7. So this is on the low F.
Yeah.
So have the energy of the movement, but keep it soft. Let the energy build more from the crescendo all the way through as you get higher, without having to worry so much about getting like so fast that you really can't that you can't. I'm a little quiet. Let me turn this up a little bit. Is this a little bit better? You just don't want it to get too fast that it's like impossible to play.
Okay.
Can we try that on the low, starting on the low F? Good. That was better. And I think also, if we think from a note grouping standpoint, the 16ths are going to the long note, right? So to the dotted 8th note.
Yeah.
So you think of that first gesture as like a 7-note like pickup to the next bar. Does that make sense? So that it drives, and every one of them drives to the long note. And then when we get to the long note, let's make sure that we're not holding it too long, because we don't want to have to reset that energy every single time. Okay. Can you try it one more time? And try to give a little bit more direction to each one of those gestures, so that it feels like when you get to the long note, it's an arrival point.
Okay.
How did that feel to you?
I think that makes more sense. Thinking of the 7 notes more as like a like, I guess, like a ferry, or like a really fast ferry to the dotted 8th. It kind of makes sense. They're more of just like helping you drive it up to that point. And I haven't really thought about it that way, I think. So that's really good.
The concept of note grouping is I use it all the time, in my own playing, when I'm learning stuff, or when in teaching, that it helps give direction, and it helps us create bigger shapes beyond just beat to beat.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, I have one other little thing. Is it supposed to slow down into the tempo change it to 54 on page 8?
No.
It's
more of like instantaneous, like a
ding yada da down, and then it just like the energy just stops, right? It's like driving. Have you ever driven in the mountains and there's when you're coming down the mountain, you see the runaway truck ramp.
Mm-hmm.
That's your runaway truck ramp when you hit the 54.
Okay.
You've lost control. And Eric writes frantically at the end of page 7. So it's okay if you lose a little bit of control, because you're about to get slowed down at the 54 as we transition into the second movement.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back one more time to the same starting spot, the low F.
Okay.
After the page turn.
Mm-hmm.
And let's build up energy all the way until you get to that E, that the quarter tone E.
Mm-hmm.
And it just stops you in your tracks.
Okay. Sorry. Let me try that again. Okay. Yeah. I think I could have done a better job of that for sure. But I think I kind of get the idea of the, like, having it be more of a sudden change rather than having it be a gradual change. So you keep the energy all the way through.
Yeah, I would encourage you to try to convey that as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm putting you on the spot to do something different, and that's always tricky. But one thing when you're practicing this, slow it down with a metronome. This is fortunately this is an easy section to practice with a metronome, because you don't have any odd asymmetrical groupings.
Mm-hmm.
But you can exaggerate these articulations. If you exaggerate them at the slow tempo, it's going to make it easier at the faster tempo.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be heard, and it'll feel more natural. It's the theme of the week: slow practice, and how it has this amazing ability to let details shine through. I have a few other things, but I pass this on to the other Dr. Gardner.
Hi, Brian.
Nice,
That was
Stefanie.
fantastic. Like the other Dr. Gardner was saying, I want to work on some transition and momentum things. So I'd like to go back to the bottom of page 3. Jessica, do I have sharing capabilities?
Yes, you should.
Awesome. I am going to share what I want to talk about so the others in the class can see. So this is a transitional moment, and I think with Eric's music we have to really bring out the form of the piece and what we were talking about with momentum. There's a lot of cool effects and things happening, but making sure that the shapes and the phrasing and the musicality is there, even with all of these crazy weird sounds that we're playing. So at the bottom of page 3 we have this huge molto retardando, and I think you could take more time there. Molto, right, means much, and then that'll help us transition to this next idea. It's a new section with the meno mosso. And then maybe you can show a little bit of slower tempo, right? So I didn't really feel too much of a difference between the first tempo you played and then the meno tempo. So I would like to work on that section.
Okay.
Maybe we could go back wherever is comfortable. Maybe the repeated C's cell, and I'll stop my share so you can watch you.
Okay.
Fantastic, fantastic. So that already feels like a different section. And with these multiphonics, it's fine if they don't speak right away. A lot of times they start from niente and just kind of let them blossom. And so the things that we can do to let them speak easier is get any tension out of the embouchure out of the way. So if you can stretch from the nose down more. Can you try just at the meno moso, thinking longer?
Yeah.
Okay. Good, good. Try one more time, keeping the embouchure really open. And again, try not to force out the higher partials. Focus on the lower ones. So the hard part about those partials is they're very close, and finding the one that we want right away. I'll let my husband tell you more about the voicing, but I think you might just be overshooting a little bit. And if you can think more of an ah for the middle one, and an e would probably be better for the higher one, the highest one, but the middle one not so open, more like you're not quite as open as the higher one, more like a ah or a ha. Why don't you try one more time? Awesome, awesome. So honing in on those partials is one of the hardest parts of this piece, and you did such a beautiful job with the opening with the stopped bell. That was awesome. I think we're running close on time, so my big advice for you is to drink lots of water, because I can hear your throat drying out just a little bit. And this piece is so exhausting with the repeated tonguing while you're circular breathing. You don't ever get a chance to like swallow. So I think it's important to stay very hydrated before you play a piece like this, so that you don't get any soft palate dryness.
Okay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great job, Brian.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Okay, up next, I believe we have Elaine. Let me get Elaine, if you could join us here.
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Elaine. Thank you so much
Hi.
for joining us. And Elaine has sent a recording, and so we're going to play the recording first, and then we can have Stefanie and Josh work with you a little bit. Okay?
Okay, and I sent the music too.
Yes, I did receive that. So
Okay, thank you.
okay. Thank you so
Bravo.
much. Okay, so let me get Stephanie and Josh back up here.
Hope we
Bravo,
can hear him.
Elaine. Nice job.
Thank you. It's pretty bad.
Aw.
Elaine, can you tell us about yourself and about how long you've been playing the clarinet? I know you're from Michelle Anderson's community, so she sent us your way. We're super grateful to her.
Yes, I'm 78, and I started playing about 4.5 to 5 years ago. And the first year I taught myself, and then I found Michelle, so I work with her once a week on the Blue Group, and I play for her probably about once every month or two.
Nice.
And I love being in the band, but in South Dakota we only have a summer band for 6 weeks. And then we're going to have the Christmas band though in December, which I'm really excited about. That's my most fun thing too, is to play in the band. Even though I can't play all the tunes or all the notes in the tunes, I still love playing it.
That's great. Steph, do you want to get started or do you want me to start again?
One thing I've noticed about your playing is that every now and then the throat is moving when you articulate. I see a little excess tongue motion. So I just want to talk about articulation briefly, and I'm sure that Mr. Gardner will talk about it as well. That's kind of his specialty. So, Elaine, can you tell me what part of the tongue is touching what part of the reed?
Well, probably probably not sure. Um, I play double lip, so it's probably yeah, probably about so far down.
Okay. All right. So I'd like to do an exercise with you so we can work on touching the very tip. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to be using the tip of my tongue and touching out there.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to play just an open G and then stop the tongue on the reed and then show on the camera where I'm touching. Could you try that
Okay.
for me?
Okay. You want me to play it?
Yes. Yes. Aha, yes. So I think you might be touching right around there.
Okay.
And that might create some extra sounds that we might not want, especially if we are in the clarion or altissimo registers.
Okay.
So I want to just do that a few times, touching the reed, and make like a lizard tongue outside the mouth. Yeah, almost like a half a taste bud. Yeah, and then put it back in the mouth. And then reset. Yeah. Good. Are you feeling it more here at the tip?
Yeah.
Good. So it should almost feel like you're giving yourself a little splinter. Okay.
Okay.
Once you get really good at that, you might just have to practice with just the barrel and the mouthpiece to retrain. And you could do that while you're watching TV or watching the news or reading a book, just to retrain and make it more automatic, away from moving the fingers. That might be a
Okay.
first step. You want to try it just with the mouthpiece and the barrel. want to add some more air behind it. Can you make this sound like a hiss? Good. I want you to notice when I'm hissing and moving the tongue to where the back of the front teeth are. I'm only moving the tip of the tongue. And then there's nothing happening in my throat. Do you feel on with your extra hand here? Yeah. Anything moving down there?
Not really.
That's good. So that's what we want when we're playing clarinet, okay? We want that air to continue all the time. I noticed a few spots in your video, you might be stopping your air during the articulation. And so this is something you can do away from an etude or exercise, just to focus on keeping the air going and only using the tip of the tongue. I think that would be a really great exercise to do. And then once you feel like that is comfortable, you can put this back on your clarinet. Sorry, wrong hand. And check the throat with your hand. Yeah. That's something that you can do until it's automatic. And then when you feel really brave, you can start moving the fingers with it, maybe like a 5-note pattern. Only when you're ready. Good. And so that lets you just do a top hand pattern while using your bottom hand to hold the neck and see if you're still moving with the back of the tongue. So that's a really great check for you. Okay?
Okay.
I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Dr. Gardner.
So everything she was talking about, I was thinking the same thing, just trying to get the tip of the tongue to the tip of the reed. And it can be tricky to do that because we can't see it, right? So we're stuck trying to rely on what it feels like. Do you have a tuner?
Sure.
You don't need it right this second, but I was going to show you a technique that I use quite a bit for determining, well, actually for checking to make sure that our tongue is touching the tip of the reed. And so I call this technique interruptions, where we touch the tip of the reed with the tip of the tongue, but we don't actually stop the reed. So there's a few benefits from this. One, we can tell what part of the tongue is touching the reed because we're holding it there. We can feel it. And we can also check the pitch of the resulting sound. And it forces us to keep our air moving all the time. The air is, for articulation, the air is so critical. We often just think of the tongue, but really it's the air that is, it lets the tongue do what it needs to do. So this exercise, I'll show you. So we just play on a low C, and we're just gonna play a nice big sound low C, and we're gonna put the tip of the tongue on the edge of the reed, and we'll create a subtone. I call this the interruption. We're interrupting the reed, and it sounds like this. So does the reed completely stop when you put your tongue on the reed?
I don't know. I'll have to
Try it.
see. Yeah.
Okay, so let's aim a little bit higher, closer to the edge of the reed, and a little bit more power behind the air. Think of your air as unstoppable. Nothing is going to stop it from getting through the horn. I heard your tongue touch the reed. Did it touch the tip of the reed, though?
I think so. No.
were you able to keep a sound while your tongue was on the reed? So. Ah, I heard it that time.
Okay.
Did you feel the reed vibrate on your tongue just a little bit?
Yeah.
That was good. Try it again.
Okay.
That's it. So all we're doing, we're putting the tongue on the reed, but we're keeping our air strong enough that the reed still vibrates just a little bit. And what we want to do to check whether we're touching the edge of the reed is to use a tuner. I've got my tonal energy, and it seems to be bored with me at the moment. And this is what happens. So I'll play a C. Grab this on the right thing. No. So when I put my tongue on the reed and get the subtone, the pitch goes sharp. That's what we want. If I touch lower than the edge of the reed, let's see if I can make myself do this. It's a very different sound, and it goes very flat. So this is a nice, it's kind of a direct way of checking. Actually, no, it's not. It's an indirect way of checking whether the tip of the tongue is actually touching the tip of the reed, because it's so hard to determine if that's indeed what we're doing. Okay?
So are you saying that I should be using the tip of my tongue for all the playing?
Tip of the tongue to the tip of the reed all the time.
Oh, okay.
And by tip of the reed, like the edge of the reed.
Right.
If
Okay.
we go down just a little bit, then we can start having problems, especially when we're tonguing up above the staff. So by sticking with the edge of the reed, that's where the reed moves the most. It's the most efficient place to actually touch the reed and get it to do what we need it to do, and that's to interrupt the sound. So
Okay.
I had an idea for something that might help with this air continuity that Stefanie was talking about. Do you have your the gavotte nearby to play through real quick?
Yeah.
Can we try the opening but with no articulation? So just slur everything. So
Okay.
good. Now let's add the articulation that's written, but as light as possible with the tip of the tongue on the tip of the reed.
Okay.
How did
I
that
don't know
feel?
if I don't know if I had my tongue on the reed.
Try it again.
With my tongue on the reed?
Yes.
Okay.
So did things feel more stable?
Well, I mostly wasn't touching the reed at all.
It's going too far, the opposite direction of being too
Okay.
light.
All
So
right.
can we meet in the middle a little bit?
I'll try it again.
So are you leaving your tongue on the reed, or are we just using, just articulating the pattern in the music?
Well, no, I tried to leave my tongue on the reed that time.
Okay, so instead of just leaving it on like we were doing in that interruption exercise, how about we just articulate somewhat normally, but focus on just using the tip of the tongue on the tip of the reed?
Well, I was, but you want that just at the beginning and the end of the sentence? I mean, of the.
Yes, and actually, could we keep going a little bit so we can get some of the eighth notes?
Oh, okay.
Okay, great. I loved the first bop beep bop beep bop bom. That was fantastic. Now let's take the articulation away and just play the eighth notes slurred. So can we try that one more time? And I want you to think of your air being unstoppable, like we were talking about before.
Okay.
Do you notice how the notes come out almost immediately? Okay, now let's add a very light articulation. Just ignore the staccato for now. So
Okay.
similar to what we were doing for the first two bars.
Okay.
That was better.
Okay.
It's a matter of not stopping the air, as we were doing with the interruption technique, where our tongue touches the reed, but we keep the air moving at all times. I would encourage you with this, especially with this exercise, to just take the articulation away, just so you get used to what it feels like to blow air through the eighth note passages, and feel what it feels like to glue the notes together with your air, and then the tongue is just interrupting slightly. That's the key word there.
Okay.
But this is a fun etude, and it gets you doing all kinds of fun stuff, especially going over between the first and the second registers, which has some fun finger challenges as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Could I add a couple things?
of course.
Yes.
Okay. So, in addition to articulation, I'd like to work on the embouchure just a little bit. I know you said you play on a double lip embouchure, which is really, really awesome. I wonder if you could make it a little bit firmer, if you could get rid of any extra movement. I think part of the articulation not speaking right away is that the lower lip doesn't always stay flexed. So if you could pretend like you're putting on chapstick for me and really stretch the lower lip, and then think about the embouchure as a rubber band, and you really have a nice pressure from the top down, and everything is equal, even the corners. And if I was there in person, I would probably try to shake your barrel as a tug-of-war challenge and see if you could keep it, like the dog with the toy. See if you could keep it stable with just the lip muscles. Okay? Could you just start the opening again, thinking about the air, but also
Okay.
keeping this very stable and engaged? Very nice, very nice. Let's do it one more time and play completely connected, no tonguing at all for now, just focusing on
Okay.
the embouchure. It's hard to think about all those things at once. Fantastic. And I would practice the whole etude super connected like that, and it will allow your embouchure to be the main focus and then the air, right? So we want to connect those notes with the air. The air is the glue. Then we can add that light tonguing that we were working on earlier. So in my
Okay.
priority for practice, I would think that the air is number one, keeping it going, and embouchure would be number two. Then once you get those second nature, then we can fiddle with the tonguing, I think.
Okay.
Okay? That sounded
Yeah.
fantastic.
It did, and it is a really beautiful sound. Your air is doing so many good things. We want to try to maintain that even when the tongue is doing something to
Okay.
try to decouple them as much as possible, so that when the tongue starts getting involved, the embouchure doesn't move, and that the air doesn't do anything that it wasn't already doing before, because it's doing that so well.
Okay.
Do you want to do your finger embouchure exercise?
Oh yeah,
with
this
me
is
later?
this is a great technique for just reinforcing embouchure, and you can do this with a double lip embouchure as well. I'll show you how I do it with just a regular single lip. You just put your finger on your teeth, on and not under, so right on your top teeth,
Oh,
and just push down on your finger with your upper lip. Your corners are in, your upper lip is engaged, your bottom lip rolls over your bottom teeth, and we have firmness all the way around. It's the upper
oh,
lip, it's the upper lip that tends to get maybe a little lazy sometimes. And this helps us get it engaged, which
okay.
then it like takes care of all the other stuff too at the same time.
Okay.
So it's a good way to just double check.
All right. That's a good exercise. I appreciate that.
Great playing,
Okay.
Elaine. It was nice to meet you and nice to work with you.
Well, thank you so much.
Fantastic.
That was very helpful.
Thanks for being a guinea pig for us.
Well, I just figured I can always use more help, and a different person ideas is always helpful. So I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Elaine. I don't know if Jody, are you here? I don't see Jody in the chat here. And if that's the case, what I think we could do, we could either do a Q&A, or we can play Jody's video that she did send to us, and then we can talk about the piece and make some critique, and then she can go back and watch that a little later. What do you think? Okay, so let me cue that up. I think she submitted Nocentini Largo. So I'm going to share her performance here. And then if she pops in, then we can work with her. But other than that, we'll give her some critique, and then we can move on to our next session. Just lunch, basically lunch or dinner for for me. And we're going to do some hangout and talk and just casually be here together. So here's Jody's performance.
Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I have a few
With
little
feedback.
things.
You go first then.
Uh, well, one, lots of good stuff happening. Um, what I like the most is just that Jody's connecting she's connecting notes really well with her air, and that's critical in any lyrical piece. It's critical in any piece, period. Um, but it becomes really apparent when we have these connected lines between registers. Uh, One thing that we clarinet players to we tend to do, and we have to be really careful of it, is we back off on throat tones. And the reason is that hold on. Throat tones are only using potentially this much of the horn, like it's like the span of my hand, rather than a long C or a low F or anything that's using the bulk of the instrument, which those notes tend to be more resistant, and consequently we tend to be a little bit better with maintaining power behind the air and getting the as I mentioned with Elaine, making sure that the air is powerful enough that it can overcome any resistance. So we back off on the throat tones because they're just not as resistant. They use less of the instrument. But the consequence with that to the listener is that they'll sound softer. They'll sound maybe not quite as full. We also have the indirect effect of the throat tones. The tone holes are closer to our ears. We hear them louder than we hear the long tube notes because they come out of the instrument closer, and we also back off as a result of that. So blowing through those throat tones as we would any other note on those long tube notes helps create to our listener a really, really connected line where we don't necessarily notice that they're throat tones. And that's something as clarinet players we do have to be really careful about, because we're all susceptible to it because we rely on our ears, but our ears are not our audience's ears. They hear differently than we perceive what's coming out of the instrument, and we have to try to accommodate that as much as possible. One of the great ways of doing that and getting used to it is what we're doing right now, listening to recordings of ourselves playing, and then you start to hear those little micromanagement moments where we do more than we need to do, and consequently it kind of breaks the continuity of our playing. That would be my big suggestion for Jody. Is blow through the throat tones. They might sound a little too loud. That's okay. If they feel less resistant, also okay. Just blow through them as you would any long tube note. And chances are, when you listen back to it, it's going to sound very even, especially like from an A to a B. If you're playing Brahms 3, second movement, getting the registral homogeneity to be as smooth and close as possible is really critical to make that excerpt work. Stephanie, do you have?
Yes, so I thought those were really good points, making sure that we really support the lower register. Sometimes when we have a phrase, the clarinet does what the clarinet wants to do, and it's not always the intention of the line. When we play in our lower register, we don't always project as much, and sometimes we need to remember that we have to really crescendo down the range of the clarinet. I'd also tell Jody to think about where are the big climactic moments in this etude. The loudest dynamic that we have, you can see Jessica has shared the score, are mezzo fortes. And so I think everything should be building up to those big moments, and maybe the mezzo forte could be a little bit stronger and more dramatic. And then you can kind of piece the rest of the structure of the etude around those big moments. Like in measure 13, you have pickups. Ba da da dee, be da da dum. Ba da da dee, ba da da dum. Ba da da dee, da dee da big. So I think that could be like a much cooler idea if we make those three pickup eighth notes more insistent every time it comes back. We have this little pattern that keeps repeating, and rule of three, each time we need to be doing something different with it. And so I think those eighth note pickups, we could be getting louder and more insistent. It even says poco accelerando, so we could get faster and more agitated to the high C. And then once we get to that high C, I think, Jody, you could hold it for a little bit longer. It's like you climbed this full mountain just to like get to the top and turn around. I think you should enjoy the view a bit and savor all the work getting up to that height, that high C, and then take a little bit of time before starting the odd tempo. Yeah, so I think shaping what we were talking about in the low register, making sure that our volume isn't changing or the air is not getting manipulated in the low register. I also think that the largo could be a little bit slower if there's enough air power behind it. Personally, I would probably choose a little bit lighter reed so that I could make these really long phrases and show off how soft you could be to how loud you can be. But that's just a personal taste, I think.
I agree with the slower tempo.
I think it'll make much more contrast when we do get to that accelerando section too. If we start dramatically slow at 48 to 56, and then you can actually build the intensity not just with the volume, but also with the pacing and the speed.
Smooth, slow phrases can be so beautiful.
Sounds like someone's practicing in your background.
Yeah. Sorry. I think there's some. Oh no, they stopped. Not really sure what was going on over there.
Maybe they're watching the live stream and then they got called out for playing. Well, I think that's all incredible advice. I think maybe what happened was this is time zone confusion here with Jody. So we will make sure that she gets notified of the video. And yeah, so I want to thank you both for joining us and helping our students today play through their pieces. And I want to thank all three of them for being willing to play for you both. It's kind of nerve-wracking to put yourself out there on the internet, even though we were on Zoom for such a long time during COVID. I think we all kind of remember what that feels like to be worried about sound and things like that. So